Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to another episode of Intuitive Creator Spotlight. I am Stella, your host, and for this playlist, I invite amazing guests who decided to embrace their paths, to connect with their gifts, transform their lives, and now are on a journey to help other people transform their lives too and connect with themselves at a deeper level. Today, I have here with me the amazing Annabelle. She is an intuitive mentor, a healer, and an author. She is guiding others back to their true essence. She has been through a personal transformation, deep personal transformation, a spiritual awakening, and now she embraced this deep commitment to help others step into their highest potential. Hi, Annabelle. Welcome to this interview.
Oh, thank you so much, Stella, for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here.
It is truly a joy to connect with you in this interview. And I know that you have been traveling quite a bit recently, and that builds up quite a bit of energy, and you bring so much from those places where you travel. So you have recently returned from Mexico to Canada. Can you tell us a little bit about how was this trip important for your journey?
Right. So that trip to go to Mexico, so the idea of going to Mexico kind of always been a bit in the back of my head. I lived in Mexico in my 20s for about 2 years, learned Spanish. My first language is French, which is kind of helping to actually learn Spanish language. And when I went back in 2022, after a few months in the States, I left during the pandemic craziness and decided to move out of Canada. It was becoming very, very intense here, and I was starting my spiritual business at that point. So I had a lot of awakenings before, but I was kind of ready to do it. I believe the discomfort of what was going on in my country kind of pushed me out of the nest and really pushed me into like, okay, what are you here to do? So I spent some months in the States, didn't really like it. I also was connected to someone, the relationship ended, big story. But my choice to go back to Mexico was okay, I'm going to experience another place in Mexico and see how I feel there. Also, the cost of living is, half what it is in Mexico, in the States or in Canada. So I was like, well, it's going to help and it's going to transition me into something different. And I was really welcome. I always loved the culture of people in Mexico, like the Latino vibes. They're very heart-warmed people. They're like very loving. And when you speak the language, you really can connect to people at a different level. It's not like being on vacation when you live there, of course. There's still stuff about Mexico. It's not a perfect country. There's no perfect countries yet, I don't think, but it's there's lots of poverty and there's lots of parties. So you see a lot of different things. And I moved in three different towns while I was there for 3 years, 3.5 years. So it's been quite interesting. I anchored more of my gifts. That's where I actually anchored even more my light language that I use with my clients. It's where I started to do actually sharing in person group healing sessions. So it really kind of opened me up to so many other things that I could do to be there in Mexico.
That sounds like an adventure for sure. And you completely chose to embrace it and go with that guidance, which sounds like a huge, huge transformation for you. And so, yeah, we were talking before we started recording this interview that there are certain places that you feel they're calling you back. It's for different reasons, to explore, to close some circles, some chapters, to learn, certain things from there. Why do you feel you were called there this time in your life?
Um, so interestingly, I met a few Mexican people while I was living in Vancouver. I've always knew in my heart I was going to travel. I'm learning astrology since a year now more deeply, and I have a lot of like Sagittarius energy in my chart. So like wanting change, a lot of Uranus and also energy, wanting change about the home and where my home is. So that created a lot of changes about that. I had also a lot of past lives in Mexico. I started to connect to those past lives when I was in coming back from a bad, well, very toxic relationship, to be honest, with a Mexican person. And I came back to my hometown, which is Quebec, on the other side of Canada. And I was like, okay, like I couldn't help but having all of those nightmares of him trying to hurt me in many different ways, which I'm not going to describe here, but it was quite like horror movie type of dreams, nightmares. And by going to that created the opening to actually me connecting to the first healer I've ever had. And she's still connected to me. She's in her 70s, I think now, and she's very sweet. And she helped me understand that the ties, I was just ready to let go of the ties I had with this person from many, many incarnations. When you fall in love with someone, sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's super karmic, and that's why there's like this pull, this magnet with someone. So that was kind of one of those relationships. That's many years ago now. And I always been called to go back. I'm someone that doesn't really like snow, and I always love more the warm weather. And Mexico being, I don't know, I think that because it's the first place where I learned Spanish, I have this Spanish Mexican accent when I speak Spanish, and I understand them. Just kind of something very important in my heart about them. So I think it's all about past lives and reclaiming my power too. I believe I had many lifetimes where I was a shaman, or where I was a medicine woman, and it was not always, and it didn't always end well. So closing that so that I can bring back the gifts of all of those lifetimes, without all of the pain, the trauma, and all of the restrictions that those lifetimes could have affected me now in this incarnation, as I'm bringing all of these gifts back into my work.
And our entire life is a journey of exploration and healing because, there are probably some people who maybe think that healers, they are healed already, which we do continue to heal layers and layers and look within. But at the same time, as we go through new experiences in life, there are those experiences may open up new things that we need to look at and heal. And so in a way, it's also exciting that there is always something else to look at and to learn from. And thank you for sharing your feelings on like why do you feel you were called back to Mexico this time. And so I know that now you help many people. You guide them through life. You guide them to connect with their essence. When would you say was that moment when you decided, you know what? I feel that this is what I need to do. How did you understand that, I am actually going to help other people and guide them on their paths?
So I think, since I was young, I always been like a magnet to people to tell me their stories. So that was like since very early age when I was like, I don't know why I'm at this bus stop and people are just telling me their life story. I didn't know why. I didn't know what to do with that either. So I think people feel very comfortable around me to tell me anything. So that always been kind of an undercurrent in my life. And I decided to be a social worker later on, which was more, we would call like a 3D choice of like living, go to school and do that type of thing. And I loved helping. So I've always wanting to help. Like that was something very natural to me. Like I would not have seen myself without working with people, although without the knowledge that I have now, it was very draining. I was so drained as a social worker. I would take all of the energy of my clients in, and I didn't know how to cleanse myself. I didn't know so many things I know now. So when the pre-pandemic, I started meditating a lot more. And then at some point I started to have chills. And then I wanted to know like more about the gifts, the clairsenses, and starting to learn about life coaching and healing. And at some point, I realized I was actually able to do all of those things, even connecting with people that have crossed over, and animals, and souls and spirits and so many things. And it was so excited to me. And at the same time, this exciting part of my life was like, well, yeah, but I have this job, like, I don't know how that would work. And so I had like an evening spiritual life, and then the daytime was really kind of detached from that. And when I left Canada in 2021, that was kind of the breaking point where I was like, well, this is the time now. I do not want to continue working for somebody else. I want to have my own business. I don't want to do social work anymore. I was a manager and I was like, I don't even want to continue in that field. And it's through pushing myself. I remember being at some point, I ended a relationship and I had to choose, okay, where am I going to live now, next, because I was in the States and Canadians can only stay for 6 months. I couldn't work there. It was quite complex. And I remember my guides coming very, very intensely at that point. And it was like, stop trying to go back finding a job. You have to step into your mission. And I was like, oh my God. All right, all right. So at that point, without it was like I needed to do something to earn money to live. And I knew that anytime that I was trying to go back to a 3D job, the door would close. That always, it was just like the universe was telling me, there's no way you're going backwards. You're going forward. Even if it's scary, go ahead. So I started channeling light language. I started to believe in myself. I think it was like really about like, you're not inventing that you're connecting. You're not inventing those messages you're receiving for people. Go ahead and put offers out. And at that point, I start putting a lot more effort into being public with my gifts. So I created a group that I still have now, where I channel messages every week for people and supporting them through readings. And then I started doing healing sessions and all of those things, and it grew from that point.
And when you go through these transitions, it can feel scary, right? Because you think, oh, what am I doing here? But I can absolutely relate to that part when you mentioned that, there is when you take the decision to help in this way, it's like everything else doesn't exist anymore. It's like you leave a room and you step into the next, and that's it. That's your path, and all you have to do is trust. And it's incredible that you chose to trust and believe in yourself, and now serve so many people and help them in so many different ways. So I know, Annabelle, that you are talking about finding the gold through the shadows. What does this mean to you?
Well, so many times in my own story, my shadow was my enemy. My shadow was something I wanted to run from. My shadow was something deep, dark, and even disgusting. I didn't want to look at it, but it was always there. You know, it's like a stinky thing in your home that you need to throw away. It's gonna keep stinking until you take it, and then you put it in the garbage. And it's not about putting in the garbage or shadows. It's really, for me, what inner child work has done, and inner critique work, and all of those part of yourself that can judge ourselves. What it has done for me was giving me back my freedom of being a very unique person. I'm not like anybody else. Like none of you that will listen to this podcast, this episode, you're all so unique. And I think for a lot of us that have gone through trauma, there's so many parts of yourself that we don't like because it was not appreciated. I'm a super sensitive person. I mean, I cry at nothing and I cry often. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm purging, or I'm just super sensitive. And I know that also I can feel what animals go through, what my clients go through. I know they don't have to explain it to me. And I think once we understand that what is very unique to us and the very difficult moments we've been through is actually, as you said, the gold, right? The gold that actually is going to help us to feel more safe in this on this planet, because we came, yes, with a list of challenges that we were going to go through, and they're not to push us back, and they're not there to make us feel small. They're actually there. We chose them because we knew we were going to be able to go through them, because we knew we would have, people around us that would support us. We would have our guides at some point showing up and bringing us, closer to our truth. So the gold for me is resides in those parts that we want to reject so much, because through the healing of those parts, through loving those parts of ourselves that have been feeling so separated from us, from source, from God, from the universe, whatever you believe in, then we can actually come to a bigger wholeness of who we are, and we trust more that the universe is there, and we allow these part of ourselves to be reparented. I've had a very difficult childhood, and my parents, they had their own issues. You know, there was alcohol abuse and physical abuse and so many things that I was witnessing. And I was not parented the way probably I should have been. But it's not their fault now. Now it's my responsibility to parent myself when I feel bad, when I feel like sad, when I feel doubt, that I doubt myself, that I doubt my path, because it still happens. It's not because we're healers that everything is always fluffy and perfect. You take roads and you're like, oh my God, like, is it the right road? And, I'm going back to my country after 4 years away. I'm staying at somebody else's place right now. It's just like, okay, it feels very foreign. And we don't know the next steps. And once you remember that your sensitivity, the beautiful gifts that you have below this shadow inside of you, um, once you remember that this is your truth, you remember that you're safe, whatever happens in the outside. And I think that's
Mm.
the safety you can cultivate for yourself.
And then you learn how to develop that feeling of safety within yourself, despite the unknown that is happening in your life and all of the other people's opinions and so much more. And I absolutely love what you said, that yes, you have been through so much, in your childhood, and your parents did things in their own ways, based on their own experiences, I guess, before as well. But now you're in a point in your life when you can say, you know what, I am aware of what's happening in my life, in my mind, in my soul, in my heart, and I can work with that. And then with the shadow part, I feel like the more we try to reject it, the more disconnected we feel within ourselves. And so when there is a disconnect, like there can be so many different consequences. And so I love how you described it. Yes, even the analogy of, like, sometimes you may feel like it's like something there in your house and you just want to throw it away, but in reality it's like you go through that and you recycle it. You recycle it, isn't it? And so you just work with those things. And this makes me want to ask you, when somebody, maybe somebody's listening to this episode now and they think, you know what, I actually feel like I am disconnected from
Mm.
myself. I I am scared to look into my shadow. I am afraid to connect with my intuition. What would you advise someone who thinks like this way, or they're in this point in their life?
Right. Um, I believe that this is a path that we all go through as souls incarnated on this planet, because we agreed to forget everything about ourselves to come here. We agreed to disconnect from, at least from a perspective of this human life on this in this reality of the 3D matrix. If you if you're not aware of the matrix, it's fine. It's just about the way that this planet works. It's truly about, there is a big courage in us. You have a fire in you that tells you there's more. And all of us have this little voice inside. There's more for me here. I don't think my life should be trauma and then pain, suffering, 9 to 5 job I don't like, relationship that are not fulfilling. I mean, what type of life is that? And that creates, the separation. That's what it creates. It creates us being okay with having a life that is not fulfilling, being okay, quote unquote, with things that are not in alignment with who we truly are. But we need to stop. And that's the first step, I would say. If you stop your thoughts, because your thoughts are going to tell you so many things 24/7. That's why a lot of us are having, I had a moment where I had a post-traumatic stress disorder. That was back in 2015, and it was back a trauma that I had completely not remembered. I pushed it so far I didn't remember for 13 years. And then at that point everything was bubbling up, but my head was, it kept thinking and kept saying so many things. So find one thing. And I know a lot of people are going to tell you to meditate. If you don't like to meditate, walk, play with your dog, but try to be present the most you can with where you're at. Don't judge yourself if you're sad. Don't judge yourself if you're angry. Don't judge your situation. And also remember, you can dream again. I think that was a big thing for me in this transition back to Canada, because I was like, well, is it gonna work? And then I'm like, I know what I want. I know in my heart I want more. I want a bigger life. I want to connect with a community. I want to be part of something bigger. I want to create this new earth, and I'm not gonna do that on my own. And in my own path, Mexico was not the place. And I know here it will open me up to whatever is going to be opened up. So dream again and write those dreams. And even if you don't know how, remember there is a bigger plan
Mm.
and that you are safe. And if you don't feel safe, stay with this part of yourself. Ask this part of yourself, what do you need? I'm here. What do you need to feel safe? It's okay that you're scared. It's okay if you're sad. It's like those part of yourself, they haven't had a place to be felt. Remember when you were young, oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, why are you doing that? And always those restrictions. Now you are the one that can open the path for yourself. So if you're feeling disconnected, find things to reconnect you. But you're gonna have to try things out. Maybe it's painting, maybe it's dancing. For me, it's dancing, painting, those type of things. I don't think. I'm just like trying to put my feet, to do the things or to learn painting in a way. But I'm not in my head. We need to get out of this head of ours. So whatever it is for you, it can be hiking, it can be swimming. You really need to find something that brings you peace, and nobody could know that other than you.
Mm. And then when a lot of people maybe told us in the past you shouldn't do this and you're too sensitive or you're too bossy or whatever, though a lot of the times those people project their own beliefs that they have built over the years, and maybe back then we could not understand with our child mind or as a teenager as well. But now, as adults, as we continue this journey of healing and personal growth, we can see how those expressions, many times, they weren't even about us. They weren't even about like something that we did or a decision of some sort. It was about those people trying to find a space, to just project those things. And when we see things from these perspectives, it's so much more freeing, isn't it? And it's like it liberates you from so much baggage, because especially as a sensitive person, you accumulate these energies, messages, and then you carry them, and then it just becomes too heavy until one point you have to remove all of that and be yourself. And so I know that through your journey of awakening and spiritual growth, you explored many spiritual modalities like Reiki, Akashic records. You have worked with energy, with astrology. Was there one particular practice that helped you the most, or is there a practice that you find yourself going to the most?
I would say that most of the things that I think I would say that for anyone, if there's something that calls you, it's because it's the first thing that lights you up. Go there. And you don't have, for me, I'm not calling myself a Reiki practitioner, because for me now there's so many other things. I don't limit myself by this. I know that's a lot of people do, and it's okay. Find what is right for you. If there is like something coming on your feed on internet or a course or whatever, and you're feeling called to doing it, there's a part of your soul that's like, oh, do it. So for me, I've always been very spiritual since I was a young child, very interested in the occult and everything. And so chakras were like, I want to learn about the chakras. So through the Reiki, I understood more about the chakras and then the energy healing. And it was, I think there's not one thing that I would say that was, past lives was really kind of really fun to dive into. For me, I think it was just remembering that I can do energy healing with my hands or distance, that I can connect to other realms and bring the best information for me or for other people. Now for me, time is not linear no more. Like it's very interesting. Like any connection for myself in a self-healing, time or with my clients, I can go back in my childhood. I can go back to another lifetime and really allow things to be healed so that I feel more centered or my client feels more centered, bringing your gift back or power back. Light language also has been very, very cool. I have a voice that I'm telling you, I did not know I had this type of voice. It's really like angelic like, and it's beautiful. It has this vibration. Like I'm very sensitive with my body. Like that's how I know like the intensity of the energy that I channel. Like language, sang, and also when I sing it or when I speak it, it is another level because it doesn't go through the mind. You're not saying, okay, I'm seeing this lifetime or this energy. It speaks to your soul, and your soul brings back the purity of you inside of you. And I have so many beautiful testimonials of how much people shift without the mind, with just letting themselves the guard down and opening their heart and being like, you know what, I am worthy of this beautiful purity of love that's coming through. So yes, I think light language would be the highlight. And it was just such a surprise when I started singing for myself and speaking it. And I was like, oh my God, that's coming out of my mouth, really? And it's just really, really beautiful. I would love at some point to record and do something very specific, like energy. It would be kind of music to healing music. We'll see how that goes. But yeah.
Mm. And yeah, to everyone who's watching this episode, please check out the description of this video because you never know, maybe by the point you find this interview, maybe Annabelle already recorded this music because yes, it's healing. And as I always love to say, that sometimes you may listen to a song or a sound um, or a sound with words that you may not understand because it's a different language, but you'll always feel the energy that comes with that music. And when you use light language, even if people around you don't understand it, is the energy and the vibration that comes through. And I know that this will help so many when you'll create that for the world. And I know that now you also have something special for the world that you completed, and that is your book, The Way Back to My Heart. Tell us more about this book, and also
Oh,
tell us if there was any like a powerful lesson for you in the process of writing the book.
oh yeah. So, I think since I was a young child, I knew I was gonna write. There was this, sometimes you just know, but you don't know what you're gonna write. And I've never been someone that loved, you know, romantic stories, those type of books. I always chose like books that I would learn. I'm very like mind driven. I love to learn. Um, and at some point, it was through that process of me leaving Canada and everything, like this drop. It was like, okay, you need to write your story. And I was like, okay, where do I start? Oh, it's not going to be easy because for anyone that's going to read this book, I've had quite a challenging life. And I think that what I learned, it was being able to look back and be like, you're standing after all of this. You are still smiling after all of this. You still have a heart that is open, wanting to help others, finding their way after all of this. And you have not given up. And I'm not saying it has not crossed my mind to give up a few times in my life on other of things, on my life when I was really young, when I was filled with all of this trauma, this darkness, and I didn't know what to do with it. Um, on projects and dreams, because I felt, everybody was judging or like thinking I was crazy of dreaming about those things. But it's, yeah, and seeing, it was so healing to go back. I cried for like the first few chapters that were really heavy, and it was because my life was heavy when I was younger. So I mean, I had to start somewhere. And but it was so healing. And then being able to be an observer of your own life and taking your power back. And yeah, a lot of the times I was like, oh, there was a lot of red flags over there and I didn't see them or I didn't want to see them. And like how much my people pleasing was overriding me putting myself first. And if there is one thing that you can remember from this conversation, once you remember that you are the most important person in your life, even if you have children, even if you have a partner or whatever in your life, and you start doing things for you, you will see people will respect you more. You will not have to put boundaries. Your boundaries will be there. They will exist. Uh, and you will have a different like relationship with the world because you will not see people as a threat. You will remember your power. You will stand for what you believe in, not in a way to crush others for what they believe in, but for what is true to you, for what you value. And, our uniqueness needs to be so, so respected and emphasized. This word would be so dull if all of us were the same. And all of us that work in this field, and me included, we want you to remember how unique you are and how beautiful it is when you decide to follow your own path that is so different than anybody else's. But that's why we're here. We're not here to walk somebody else's path. We were here to walk our own. So I think it was, yeah, this whole like I'm able to write. I'm an author now. Yes, I'm an author. Oh, this
Yay.
is nice.
Congratulations. It is a huge step and it kind of makes you go like revisit certain places, memories, moments in your life, thoughts, beliefs, if they're still there, if they change. And it's so much that you have to go through. And then there are also times when you have to take break. And then that break can go from one day to a month or more. And it is a whole process. And that's why I wanted you to share with us some of the things that you have experienced and learned through the process of writing your book as well. And I love what you said, that when you remember that you need to do things for yourself to know who you are, you no longer see the world or other people around you as a threat. You you begin to respect them for their journey and their gifts and everything that they came here to experience as well. And it is a big, beautiful co-creation, isn't it? And it may sound like, well, you just know yourself. But really, when you take a moment to remove all the external factors, to listen to what's within yourself, it is such a beautiful, profound journey. And I'm so grateful you have been sharing here with us in this episode part of your journey, because I know it's so much more than what we were able, sorry, to talk about today. And that's why I invite absolutely every person who's watching this video to connect with Annabelle. Check out the description of this video because her story is powerful, her mission is beautiful, and she's also helping people connect with their own businesses, especially spiritual businesses. And so my last question for you, Annabelle, today is for those people who want to be spiritual entrepreneurs. They could be maybe people who want to do spiritual guidance, but maybe they also feel that they are spiritual entrepreneurs doing other stuff, like creating things in this physical reality as well. What would you describe as the energy of being aligned with your business at a spiritual level when you
Mm,
serve in this way?
right. I would say what I like to do, and maybe that could be something that we leave people with, is your business has a consciousness. So invite this consciousness, meditate with this consciousness. What does it want? What color does it have? Do you feel excited when you connect to it? Do you feel there's part of it that are dark and you don't want to look at? Like what is your connection to this whole being? Because a spiritual business, as you said, even if you're creating paintings, you're dancing, whatever you're doing, you're spreading your light through the work that you're doing. Um, and if you're feeling that you want to create more, if you're feeling that there's something maybe you're not sure about, I would invite this consciousness in and see what messages it has for you. Because sometimes the mind is going to limit us a lot of the time. It's going to be like, who are you to start doing readings? Who are you to start healing others? Who are you? And I teach people how to do those things. So I know what's coming up because it came up for me too when I started. Like this questioning or like the mind, it loves to base in the analytical, right? But energy healing, readings, paintings, it's very out there. It's floaty. It's not very, even if sometimes there's an object, the impact of what we do is energetic, right? It cannot always be seen and very measured, let's say, with something. So I would say try to see what part of yourself is maybe scared to step into the new. If you already have a business you want to expand into, okay, what is going on there? Like, why am I keeping myself comfortable if I wanted to create something new? If you want to start a business, but your mind or even people around you, because people around us, they're just a mirror of us. So if you have a lot of people questioning you, are you questioning yourself? Maybe you are, and they're just projecting that back to you. So how can you take time to connect with this part of you that is afraid of showing up, afraid of expanding, afraid of saying to the world, I am a healer, I am a reader, whatever it is that you're doing, right? And then see if you need more guidance. I'm here. I know a lot of us are doing this work, but it's like if you don't go deep into what is the resistance, you won't go through it. You won't go past it. So you meet the resistance, see what the message is there, and find guidance if you can't go beyond it, because you're here to change the world. That's why you're here. You all know, if you are listening to this exchange we just have now, you're here for something bigger. And if there's anything limiting you, it could be a past life, it could be anything else, but try to see what it is, give it love. And if it's actually like the last message I would say would be, if you're fearing doing something, is because you have to do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't fear it.
That's a good one. That's a fantastic one to kind of end the episode with. And thank you so, so much, Annabelle, for your presence, for your beautiful light, for sharing your wisdom with us and talking about your experience, because I strongly believe that every story heals when we share it from our heart, when we talk about what we've been through, how we overcame those things, what we created in all of that mess, and after it as well. It brings a lot of love and inspiration to the world. And thank you for bringing this to us today. And to everyone who's watching us, if you're new to this channel, please take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Check out the description of this video to connect with Annabelle and myself, and I cannot wait to see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.